Okay, we will start again. Let me share the screen. Okay, the PNEI system we will discuss now. The mind which regulate the behavior of the person is denoted by this psycho term, and there is this area of medicine which handles that part. Right? Then nervous system. There is neurobiology handling that part. Endocrine system is endocrinology in medicine. That branch is there. Immune system, immunology branch. Okay. Then what each one is doing for our purpose, we will simplify. Immune system, you already know. Very important these days, isn't it? It consists of these organs and processes that provide resistance to infection and toxins. Such organs include thymus, bone marrow, and lymph nodes. They form immune system of our body. Stress can have an impact on the immune system as well. So therefore, knowing about stress and controlling it is very important these days, especially in this pandemic kind of situation as well. Then the nervous system consists of nerves and neurons that transmit signals between different parts of the body, directly connected with the brain. Right? Then endocrine system, very important for our discussion here. It is collection of many glands that produce hormones. Earlier I talked about hormones. These hormones regulate many things, many variables in that homeostasis system. Many things like metabolism, your growth of the body and development of the body, tissue functions, sexual functions, reproduction, sleep, and your mood, and some more. Right? So it's all that collection of glands that produce the hormones to regulate these things. Now, how this mind or the psycho part or the thought engine is connected with these other three things is important for especially meditation as well as our topic stress management here. Now, let us briefly look at endocrine system because the hormones we need to identify now. Okay? Functions. What are the functions of the endocrine system? It makes hormones that do all that controls I mentioned earlier. It controls how these hormones are released to the blood. So when you feel fear, when you feel sorrow, or hatred, or anger, all those emotions will make these hormones to be released to the blood. Certain hormones, I will be explaining them. Then endocrine system send these hormones into the bloodstream so they can travel to other parts of the body and do some activity there. Energize some other part of the body to do an activity. So these are the three main functions of the endocrine system. Very much related with the thoughts and our stress topic. Well, it consists of set of glands. I've already mentioned that. A gland, what is the definition? Gland means it's an organ that makes hormones, and that hormone do a specific job in your body. gland will release them to the blood when the command comes from the controller of the endocrine system, which I will explain in a moment. But actually the command is coming from this psycho part, the mind. There are many glands that make up the endocrine system. We will not be looking at all. Let's look at one or two important for our topic here that will give some insights of how they are related with the stress. Right? In the brain, there are three glands: hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and pineal gland. They are the glands in the brain that belong to the endocrine system. In the neck, you have this thyroid and parathyroid glands. What hormones they release and what activity is promoted, I will give in a moment. Right? Then in between your lungs here, we have thymus. Then on top of the two kidneys, there are two adrenal glands. Behind the stomach, we have pancreas. Then ovaries and testes, they also release certain hormones. Right? Now, these adrenal glands are extremely important in our discussion of the stress. So let's look at these two also briefly. Hypothalamus, I think you have already learned this in other O levels maybe. It is the part which connects the endocrine system with the nervous system. The connection between the two, endocrine system and the nervous system, is done by the hypothalamus. Its main job is to tell the pituitary gland to start or stop making hormones. So what is the pituitary gland then? It is the master gland of the endocrine system. It uses information from the brain, that means thalamus, hypothalamus, to tell all other glands in the body whether to make hormones or whether to reduce making hormones. All those commands are coming from the pituitary gland. Then pineal gland, some other hormone, melatonin, that regulate your sleep. So these are the three in the brain region. In the neck, you get thyroid gland. You know, thyroid hormones control metabolism of your body. If this gland doesn't make enough thyroid hormones, your heart rate will drop and your weight will increase. If this gland makes too much of thyroid hormones, your heart will be racing too much and your weight will be lost. So it's very important for the metabolism of the body. Parathyroid is making hormones to regulate the bone health. This is the most important for us, but let's look at the thymus as well. Related with the white blood cells that fight infections. And it's crucial in the immune system. This is until you grow up fully, it is thymus defending you. Then two adrenal glands on top of the kidneys, they are best known for making that fight or flight response, which we spoke about under stress earlier, using hormone called adrenaline. This is alternative name for this. Also, these two organs make, two adrenal glands make GCs, glucocorticoids. Part of that is corticosteroid is another name. And also they make another hormone called catecholamine. I'm going to explain these hormones in few slides because they are so important in understanding the fight or flight response, that war generated by the body in response to the external stimuli. Okay, so there are other glands in the endocrine system which I'm not explaining. You can refer to it through the internet later if you want to. But this is the most important. They are responsible for releasing stress hormones to the blood and purging them from the blood, or taking them back from the blood. Adrenaline is a kind of, it has a positive effect because when it is in your blood, you have physiological arousal. That means you feel active. You feel active, you are energized, and you feel more alert. Therefore, it's very good, positive effects. It prepares the body for some activity, quick activity. The body is prepared for that. Okay. All these are positives of adrenaline. The problem is, if the adrenaline is not taken out of the blood after its purpose has been served, then it can cause certain damages to our systems, which means adrenaline should be there in the blood when it is needed. When it is not needed, the adrenaline level should be reduced. So that is the kind of regulation we were discussing in the homeostasis system. So if homeostasis system is affected by due to stress, then regulating function of the adrenaline is not working properly. So we have to be aware then what will happen. Then this set of hormones, it's a category of hormones called GCs, glucocorticoids, and they are a class of steroids. Steroid hormones, they also make you active for some explosive activity, quick activity. It regulates the utilization of the glucose in the blood. When needed, the protein and lipids will be quickly converted to glucose by GCs, giving energy. So you feel energized. But if GCs are unbalanced, if there is an imbalance in the GC variable in the blood, that means homeostasis system is not properly working, then you feel increased appetite. You always feel that you want to eat. And of course, you will eat then obesity, that means you become fat. So those are the bad effects of the GCs. They are good for quick activity, but if GCs have not been regulated properly, or when not needed, it has to be reduced in the blood or removed from the blood. If that is not done due to your stress issue, due to your thoughts, then these problems will be the result. Catecholamine. Another hormone that is the main purpose is it regulates the blood pressure. Catecholamine, when present, increase the blood pressure. But if the blood pressure, if it is prevailed too much, then it forms plaque inside the blood vessel. This is the blood vessel cross section, and you find this kind of plaque formed in the inside walls of the blood vessels. So these problems will come. Heart disease, stroke, they are likely to happen in the latter stages of your life if the catecholamine regulation is not properly done by the body. So in summary, you can now see that initially the effect of these stress hormones like adrenaline, GCs, and catecholamine And growth hormones also effect is good. They have positive effect. They have positive effect, especially when you are in the comfort zone. That means stress overload has not occurred. Then these are at the healthy levels, regulated at the healthy levels. But if the stress in the mind, in your thought process, is driving overproduction, driving the glands or the endocrine system to do overproduction, then it has a lot of negative effects. Entire metabolism is affected. Rate of cell growth in the body is affected. Repair system and immune systems are affected. That means these NEI, all three systems are affected. It's not only the overproduction. Actually, I missed one point here. There are two things. One is overproduction. The other is poor regulation. Regulation means when stress hormones are not needed, they should be taken away from the blood. So if it is not taken away, although it is not overproduced, it remains in the blood in a prolonged period, and that is also harmful. Now, suppose, let me give you an example. Suppose your mind, you perceive that there is some task given to you which is beyond your capability, right? Or there are obstacles. If you perceive like that, then stress hormones are released to the blood. But after that threat has gone, your mind should feel that, okay, that threat is no more there. That threat is no more there. When you have that feeling, your psychosystem is giving commands to the other three systems, okay, take out these stress hormones from the blood now. If that does not happen, so because that feeling never came to you, suppose the feeling that the threat is over never came to your mind, then these hormones continue to circulate in the blood, causing all these issues. So it's not only the overproduction, it is prolonged circulation of these hormones in the blood. Then prolonged increased breathing rate will be there. Heart will remain raised, blood pressure will remain increased, blood sugar, muscle tension, dilated pupils, all this I mentioned earlier. They will remain even after the real threat coming from outside has been removed. I'm sure you don't want that to happen. The moment you feel that your threat is gone, that problem is no more there, then everything will be corrected. But if you don't feel that, it is all due to your thinking, right? Suppose you don't think in such a way that you don't feel that threat is removed, the threat is gone, then these things will continue to trouble you because those hormones are circulating in the blood. And the brain is a crucial target when that happens, right? When there is severe stress, brain is a crucial target. This area called hippocampus in the brain is severely affected. And hippocampus regulate your memory and regulate your facial expressions, your mood. And what will happen if hippocampus is affected by stress hormones? This happens over a fairly long period of time. Your memory will start to give trouble, long-term memory. It is transforming short-term memory to long-term memory, and that function will be affected. And the moods will be affected. That means your mood may not fit into the situation. Okay, so now you have a fair idea about those hormones and what they do, what are their positive effects, and what are their negative effects under those two scenarios. That means when prolonged hormone presence in the blood, or overproduction of the hormones. Suppose you feel too much fear, more fear than really necessary, then it's overproduction of the hormones happening. Then quick word about this thing, depression. That happens when things become worse. If you experience chronic stress, that means severe stress, that cause chronic changes in brain structure and function, then depression will set in. Neurological problems start to happen. So depression is very, very bad. Stress is not as bad, of course. But prolonged stress or chronic stress, severe stress, lead to depression. I don't want to talk about depression too much, but better to know a little bit about it. The first thing I want you to know is that if the depression has occurred in someone's mind and the body, there is no cure. He or she will carry it till death. Of course, there are certain drugs that are available to slow down your thinking process to minimize the effects of depression, but no permanent cure. It comes back in every 2 years, 3 years. So you will be under continuous medication throughout the life. Therefore, depression should be avoided by all means, by anyone. Right? It gets in the way of your judgment, so your judgments will be wrong after that. Any kind of competition will be seen by your mind as a threat, not as a challenge. And depression damages the positive frame of your mind and your happiness. It promotes negative thinking, damaging your self-confidence, narrowing your attention span, and disrupting everything, flow of your life. So this is happening if the stress is not treated properly. Right? I don't want to talk too much about it, but you can see on the left column, you have common signs of stress. On the right column, you have common signs of depression. Just read it a little bit. So stress overload can cause all these. Well, can cause even change in eating habits. Problem with memory concentration, I already explained. And feeling burned out from studying or schoolwork. You feel it's too much for me. Feeling that you can't overcome these difficulties. Trouble functioning in class or in your personal life. You feel angry, irritable, easily frustrated. All that is signs of stress. Common signs of depression is withdrawing from other people. You want to be alone. You feel sad, hopeless, lack of energy. You have trouble in making decisions, restless. Sleeping is severely affected. Concentration, memory are seriously affected. And all that. Somewhat similar here between the two. But this one is the last, right? Due to depression. It never comes due to stress, thoughts of suicide. So people with depression needs medication, no doubt. But people with stress or chronic stress can be initially treated with without even using any medication, counseling may be enough. But I'm sure as you, considering you as an average person, you don't need counseling or any medication at all, because there are tools like meditation, yoga, and various other tools I will give you later. You can use to prevent any kind of medication or taking drugs. Okay, now we discussed sufficiently the mind part here, the psycho part, and the body part with lot of organs, the interface being the brain. So all these areas are going to be affected due to stress overload and chronic stress. That means prolonged severe stress. How they are affected, I briefly explained using those medical terms, the hormones, what they do. Right? So you can see many parts of the body under the control of the endocrine system will be affected by stress. Right? So your neuron system is affected, endocrine system is affected, and immune system is affected due to the presence of the stress in your mind. Okay, all that up to this point, what did we discuss? We were discussing the bad side of the stress and what it does to our body. Now we come to an important area. What are the tools available for self-managing this stress without asking anyone's support? Actually, any person can manage stress overload all by himself or herself. Let's discuss what are the methods. Right? Two approaches are there. Two approaches are there to manage stress. First approach is called change the situation. You know, external stimulus is driving your mind to stress. This approach is you try to change that stressor, change that situation. There is another alternative approach. Rather than changing the situation, external change, you change internally and change your reaction to the stressor. So all the techniques fall under these two categories. Right? Change the situation is one approach, change your reaction is the other approach. Let's discuss each one a little bit more. Okay. Change the situation means you are going to deal with outside. Right? Change your reaction means you are going to deal with inside, your mind. This may be the more healthy way. Right? Of course, this you can try. It might work or might not work. If you try, it definitely works. So, but choice is there. For each stressor, you can use either this method or that method, depending on the type of the stressor. Okay, how do we change that external stimulus or external stressor or external situation? There are two ways to do that. One thing you can try is to think, or can I avoid this situation? There may be methods of avoiding. Or can I alter the stressor? So two techniques, avoid technique or alter technique. Both will change the external situation. You are attempting to change the external situation. But what I want to highlight more is the other option. Changing from within. Okay, changing the reaction. Two methods for that. First is known as accept technique, accept the stressor. Second is adapt technique. Accept and adapt we'll discuss little more, but before we move to this area, which is very much related to mindfulness and meditation, we will discuss this part briefly, so that we have an idea, because that knowing that technique is also useful under certain scenarios. But I want to highlight this part because by trying to change your reaction without trying to change the external situation, actually we change our perception. We change our attitude. By changing perceptions and attitudes, stress situations can be fully avoided. And there is a shield in your mind which prevent any stressor damaging your thinking or your inner happiness when you practice these methods. Okay, let's look at the first two techniques. So if I'm summarizing, remember these 4 A's, right? 4 A's, alter, avoid, they are changing outside, accept, adapt, they are changing inside. So it's very easy to remember, isn't it? Whenever you feel stressful situations, remember there are 4 A's available to solve your issue. 4 A's available to solve your issue. Alter, avoid, and accept, adapt. Just to simplify, remembering this, I have mentioned the 4 A's, right? Okay, let's look at the first 2 A's. That means alter, avoid techniques. Other two, maybe we might not have time today to cover fully, but we will continue our discussion on the other two next time. Now we have this PNEI system, right, here. Then out of these 4 methods, let's say that you decide on this change the situation technique to use under a particular stressor. So best is if you can alter the stressor, like what you did today, right? If you think that the quiz is too much for you and you are not ready, capability may not be enough, you can try to alter the stressor. Talk to me through the batch rep. That's what you did, right? And get me to change the date to the next week. It worked, isn't it? So it's an example of trying to change the situation. But what if I did not agree? What if I did not agree? Okay, then that method will not work, isn't it? Then maybe avoidance techniques you can try, right? Okay, I'm just giving examples, but think of the pandemic, for example. Can we alter the stressor? The pandemic is coming in a big way. It's very forceful, attacking every country. Worldwide impact. Then trying to alter the stressor might not work very much, right? Maybe accepting and adapting is better for such forceful stressors. But less forceful ones, of course, you can try this. Okay, but there is a danger here. The danger is this. Suppose it's a loop actually. Suppose you now perceive that your capability is not enough, or time is not enough, or obstacles are there. When you perceive like that, okay, you understand there is a problem and you use your three systems to change the situation. Of course, now the endocrine system will energize you, isn't it? Because you have felt the stress. Endocrine system will release those stress hormones to the blood, so you feel alert, you feel active, and you are energized. And as a result, you make an attempt to do an alteration to the outside or to avoid the outside. And if it works properly, then your mind will sense, okay, the danger is now gone. So the mind will start getting emotions which are good. Right? Then as a result, these three systems, especially the endocrine system, will be commanded by the psychopath. Okay, now that threat is gone. Stress hormones can be taken out from the blood because the purpose is served. So endocrine system will reduce the stress hormones in the blood, things will be okay. Right? But supposing in your attempt to, the other side of it, in your attempt to alter or avoid, fails. If it fails, you feel, okay, I'm trying my best to alter this or avoid this, but it continues to threaten me. The threat is coming in a bigger way. Then what happens is that thought, that perception in your mind will drive the endocrine system crazy. These three systems crazy, actually, they overreact, releasing more and more stress hormones to the blood. Then you are more energized now and you try to do this further and you fail. And then you feel the emotions more deeply and you drive these three systems further. And I think you can guess now, it's a vicious cycle going like this, which will finally be damaging. Chronic stress can set in, and if prolonged, it can even lead to depression conditions. Therefore, although you try this with awareness, try it with awareness. If it fails, quickly adapt to the other two. That is the safe way, right? That is a safe way to handle. Right. Then a word about this avoidance, right? Supposing that your mind does not agree to go for these two. If your mind does not agree to accept or adapt, you assume that your mind rejects this approach for a particular stressor and want to, let's say you can't alter, so you realize now this is not possible. I'm taking an example. So you might think, okay, avoiding is the best. Right? Avoiding is the best. Assume that you decided like that. Then your mind will find, your mind will search, okay, what are the methods available for me to avoid this situation? And there are unhealthy ways you might resort to if you are not fully aware of how to avoid it smartly. Let me give you one or two examples of unhealthy ways of trying to change the situation or trying to avoid the situation. These are, in medical terms, they are called unhealthy reactions to stress, right? Because you are trying to avoid. Okay. Smoking. You know, when people feel stressed, subconsciously, their mind decides to smoke. unhealthy way. It's an avoidance technique. Right? Then drinking alcohol, overeating, undereating. Another unhealthy reaction to stress. These can become habits, of course. That's why I'm showing this to you. Any such habit must be cut off from the beginning. Right? Well, number 4, are you there? Spending hours in front of the TV or computer. Of course, nowadays you may be in the computer because of the learning. But this is also an unhealthy reaction to stress. Because you can't alter the stressor, you want to avoid and hide. And TV is, you can hide behind the TV or computer by not facing the situation. Withdrawing from friends, family, and activities, another unhealthy way of avoidance. Using pills or drugs to relax, this is very common in other countries, although Sri Lanka it is not common, not that common. Sleeping too much, another very good avoidance technique, right? Delay or postpone action, called procrastination, is another unhealthy reaction to stress, because in this way, if you try to avoid the stressor, it might be more forceful, coming more in more forceful way later. Then filling up every minute of the day with activity, that is overactive, too much activity. That's also unhealthy way to react to a stress. Taking out your stress on others means you get angry and blame others, and you get easily irritated and hurt others for your problem. So remember these 10. Don't resort to these 10 if there is a stressor causing trouble. Right? Applying pressure, applying tension to you. Be aware about these 10 and never try these ones. Right? These coping strategies temporarily seem to reduce the stress. That's why people try them. But in the long run, they cause more damage than good. So I suggest that you keep this list and check when something happens. Am I trying these? So going back to the previous slide, mostly people do those as avoidance techniques. So although avoid is one way to cope up with the stress, you can try it, but if you can't, just quickly give it up. Avoidance techniques, try to use these methods rather than adopting these bad practices of avoiding. Okay. Next, the healthy method. Right? This part. Suppose your mind decides, okay, I'm not going to alter, or I'm not going to hide behind, and I'm going to adopt this procedure. Internal change, first accepting, then adapting. The mind has to decide that. And when the mind decides, there are certain effects. The moment that decision is taken, there are certain effects, impact on the nervous, endocrine, and immune systems. And it's a feedback actually. As a result, you find your hormone levels will be under control. Right? And what are the methods to accept? What are the methods to adapt? Since there is no time today, that part I will leave to our next discussion. That's very important part actually. This is where mostly relaxation techniques and meditation. There are about 12 techniques you can use. I will step by step highlight them in our next meeting, next lecture. Right. So in summary, what we discussed today, we defined what is called homeostasis system. And we know now that the PNEI system is driving that homeostasis. So if any variable is unbalanced, the homeostasis system will be correcting that. Corrective action will be taken. We were discussing that. Then we define stress as, how did we define? Stress is any kind of demand. It could be physical demand, it could be mental demand, or it could be emotional demand that will affect homeostasis. Okay. So emotional demands, we learned that they are coming here from the psychopath. Homeostasis system is mainly these three, and any kind of demands coming there, if it badly affect these areas and other parts of the body, then we call it the stress situation. Then we learn the human function curve and found that there is an area of healthy tension, area of comfort zone, and also the bad area beyond the harm. And then we learned about these three subsystems. Especially we spend more time on the endocrine system. We now know what are the glands, what are the hormones, and what each hormone is supposed to do. What is the positive effect and the negative effect of those hormones we learned under endocrine system. Then we identified 4 A's. There are 4 A's in order to cope up with the stress when it occurs. Alter, avoid is one category, accept, adapt is another category. Alter, avoid techniques I gave you, and bad techniques to avoid also I highlighted. There are about 10. And the best methods are to come in our next discussion. Right. So that is a summary. We will stop our discussion here. Next week, please prepare for the quiz, and I will put the journal today. During the break, I did not put the journal, but I know you have practiced the meditation. So in the next week, you can write your experience in the journal as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.